Hey guys, hi everyone, good evening. Good evening, Krish. Good evening, Muhammad Ashwaq. Good evening, Adil. Good evening, guys. I hope I am audible as well as visible. Am I? Good evening, guys. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening, Espant. Good evening. Good evening, Ankit. Good evening, Pradnya. Hello, Osman. Hi, good evening. Uh, Perfect. Good evening, Anurag. Good evening, Kavita. Good evening, Nandini, Doha. Good evening, guys. Perfect. So I guess I am audible as well as visible. So I hope there's no noise from my side, right? Good evening, Nandini. Good evening, Palumi. Good evening, Ramesh. Hello, hi. Okay, wonderful. So I can see students are joining. So we will wait 1 or 2 minutes. In the meantime, let's set up the environment and then we can start our session accordingly. Today's class is going to be an important class. Reason being because we are going to discuss some basics of Node.js, and basics is always important. As a developer, you must have your basics very clear. It doesn't matter how good of a coder you are, unless and until you don't have your basics clear, things are not going to work in your favor. So for that reason, have to make sure that we will understand our basics properly. So allow me a second so that I can set up the environment. Let me start sharing my screen. Please do let me know once my screen is visible. Is it visible, guys? I think it is visible, right? Perfect. Great. Okay. So let's start. Let's start. Let's not waste our time. It should be already visible to all of you. Perfect. 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 Although I can see only 36 students here. Not sure why, because according to the poll that we launched in our WhatsApp group, there were more than 100 students who said, yes, we are going to join the session for the entire time. So please ask your friends to join quickly as soon as they can so that we can start and with our session. So currently we are learning and we are discussing our back end. So let me go here and let me try to go and open this with our code. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Cool. Good evening, Rohit. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Jeremy. Good evening. See, until now we have understood basics of Node.js. We understood when we talk about Node.js, it's a runtime JavaScript engine that allows us to write server-side logic and execute it properly, right? We understood that it's non-blocking in nature. We also understood its architecture in our previous session as well. We understood how it accepts requests and how it executes them. If it's non-blocking, what happens, what thread pool is, and all of those things. Then we started a very important discussion by understanding that whenever we talk about Node.js, it's very important for us to understand how do we write our code in it. And in order to write our code, we use modules. And then from that modules, we can actually implement our logic that we have to implement. Now, when we talk about our modules, in our modules, we have three types of modules: core modules, local modules, and our third party module. Core modules, we already know that core modules are such type of modules which simply do not require any other external installation. We simply will install them properly, right? That's one thing. Second thing is our local modules, a module which we will create. And then over here, third module is a third party module which we have to install, right? Sir, my doubt is that JavaScript event to event, Node.js event driver is different or not. See, when we talk about event-driven structure, we will discuss that later on. We have a small session on that event-driven structure, and maybe over there we will discuss event driver as well, if that is the part of Node.js. And related to my event loop, I guess we have already discussed what event loop is in the front-end series. Okay, so please go and refer to that, what event loop means. Even in the previous session as well, we already discussed what event loop is. I hope my VS Code is visible. Is it visible, guys? I think it is visible, right? Perfect. We understood that inside our JavaScript, we simply will create, there's no quality in video. Ignore video, pay attention towards the VS Code. Over here, we discussed in our previous session that we have a module called as FS module, right? And then we simply are telling it require the all functionalities or require me whatever this FS module contains, give it to me and store it in a variable. Then we simply try to implement few of the methods over there. In order to read a data from a file, we can simply use a method called as read file sync. In order to write or create a new file, we will use write file sync in order to make sure that the file is already there. We will simply add over here what we can say more content. In that particular case, it is simply append file sync, right? Can increase the font size? Let me do that. So let me try to increase the font size of this particular VS Code. I hope it's visible, right? Sir, can we use API? We will use APIs. We will create APIs on our own as well. We will learn how can we create our APIs. So we will also create APIs. Don't worry about it. At this point of time, whatever we are discussing, please pay attention towards that only. See, let me try to create the same file over here. Let me try to write script.js. Okay. I have a simple question over here to all the students who have been part of our previous session. Let's suppose I have a file over there called as adfar.txt and I want to read its content. So if I want to read its content, what is the module that I'm going to use? Which module inside our Node.js allows me to go and deal with the file system of that particular application? Yes or no? Come on, guys. Which is the module? We will use fs module, right? Then we will talk about the method. My question is module. So we will use fs module. So let me go inside this and I will simply say where my fs variable is equals to, I will simply say require. What require? My fs. Perfect. Now, of course, when we say require my fs, now we can simply use fs variable over here to make sure to read all of its methods, right? What is the method which we use? It's called read file, right? Read file sync actually. If I go here, I have a simple question, console.log. Let me try to console Adfar over here like this. So if I execute it, we can clearly see it will print Adfar in the console, which it does. Perfectly fine. Then I will simply go and simply try to execute my set timeout function. In set timeout function, I will pass an argument like this, like this, like this, like this, where it simply says console.log 2. Let me console 1 over here and let me console 2 over here. Okay. After that, I will simply pass a timer to it, which is 2000. It simply means that I am actually telling it, please execute this particular code after 2 seconds. Don't execute it immediately. Now, if I go here in this particular code and try to write console.log my 3, what will be the output, guys? If I execute it, what will be the output in this code? Because we have already seen our asynchronous JavaScript. So in this case, if I try to execute this code, we can see the output is 1 and then 3. After 2 seconds, it will print 2, right? Now, according to what we have discussed in our previous session, JavaScript is a synchronous single-threaded language. Now, when we say synchronous, what does that mean? That means from top to bottom execution will happen, and unless and until my second line of code is not executed, first line of code is not executed, second line will never be executed. That's synchronous, right? But over it, if you see something happened, it executed this, then it executed this, and then it executed the function inside this. So what's happening over here? Since this particular function takes time, it is a asynchronous code over there. It's an asynchronous operation. So Node.js sees that it's an asynchronous operation. It simply determines that I will execute this particular code later on. Now, how does that all things happen? How does it execute the code? What's the different functionalities, terminologies in it? We have discussed that in our front-end sessions when we talked about asynchronous JavaScript, right? But at this point of time, since this is asynchronous, it will execute this code, then it will execute this code, and then it's going to execute this code, and after 2 seconds, it's going to print it, right? Similarly, over here, we have a method that is of our file system module. They are asynchronous methods over here. What are those methods? Asynchronous. For example, I want to read the content. So I will simply say where my data is equals to, from the fs, I want you to simply read the file sync. What is the file name? Simply adfar.txt and use the Unicode encoding 8 over here. Done. Now, if I go here, console.log, we can clearly see as soon as I execute data, whatever data we have in this file, which is adfar.txt, you can clearly see as soon as I execute my code. So as soon as I execute my code over here, let me try to remove this. So node, and then inside that, I have first of all cd fs folder. So let me try to open this, and then I will simply go node script.js. And if I execute it, we can see first it executed this. Then since this is a synchronous method, it executed this, and then it executed this. So right now, this read file sync that I'm using, it's a synchronous method, right? I hope that makes sense. But now what will I do? I will remove the sync over here because we already discussed this method in our previous session. What if I will use a method called as read file? It's a valid method. With the help of this method, we will be able to read the content of our data. But why do we use read file more than read file sync? When we talk about reading a content of a file, are you guys sure how much time it's going to take to read the content? Maybe there's a very huge content inside the file which you are trying to read. So in this particular case, the reading of a file, reading of content of a file is a blocking operation. Maybe if it takes n number of seconds, it means over here, if I use read file sync, I am telling it, wait n number of time, wait n number of seconds, and wait, make sure it reads it, and then it prints it, then only move forward. But since we have our requirement here, that maybe this particular file that I actually have, it contains lot of text. I would simply want it to execute it in the background. Later on, I will access it, keep moving forward and execute this much code. That's why we need read file over here. We will not use read file sync in most of the cases. But if I go here and try to execute my code, you can see it gives me an error. Why? Because whenever we talk about asynchronous operations, always remember they have a function associated with them, a callback function associated with them, right? I think we have discussed what callback functions are in our one of the sessions. What's a callback function? A function which is passed as an argument to another function is called a callback function, right? Now over here, always remember all the asynchronous methods, whether it's read file or write file or append file or unlink file, all the methods which we'll see, they receive a third argument over there, which is a callback function, a function. So I will simply go past a function like this, where I will simply tell it to do something. What I want to do, I want to display the data over there. Always remember this synchronous operation receives two more arguments. Number one is error. If there is any error, I am not able to read the data, then error. If there's a data, then give me the data. Now over here, I don't need even to create this in a variable. I will simply tell it, if there is error. In that particular case, I would simply want you to console the error. If there is no error in that particular case, please go and else console.log, give me the data that I have. Now, in this particular code, if I try to execute my code, we can clearly see, please subscribe to variable verse. But pay attention. This whole logic, don't you think it is being executed at the end? This got executed properly, this got executed, then it executed this. Why? Because it's asynchronous in nature. I am telling it, if you take time, let's take time. I don't have any issues with it, but let me execute the rest of the code. This is asynchronous in nature. I hope that makes sense, right? Similarly, using the fs method, I can also write as well. I can create a new file as well. What is the file that I'm going to create? Simply whatever file I want. Let's suppose I want to create verse.html, in which I simply want to create a content, or instead of saying HTML, I will simply create txt file at this point of time. I want to put some content in it. What is the content that I would put? Simply some content, Adfar Rasheed, let's suppose. Now, in this case, if I try to execute this, it will give me an error. Why? Because it's an asynchronous function. We must pass third argument over there, itself a function. And in that function, whatever it needs to do, it can do that. It's completely up to it. Whatever it needs to do, you can completely ask it to do that in the same manner. But it's an asynchronous. We have to pass a callback function. Now, in this case, if I try to execute this code, we should be clearly seeing over there a file getting created, which is verse. And in this, I can see my content as well. So I hope you have understood the difference between my asynchronous file methods and synchronous file methods. Give me a quick confirmation, and then I will move forward to the next module called as operating system module. Quickly. Everyone, yes or no? Quickly, quickly, quickly. Perfect. Great. Now see, when we talk about our back end, sir, my question is that, as I said, I will come to that later on. Event-driven architecture, we will discuss that. In our previous class, I did not said event driver. I have not even used this word. I might have said event-driven architecture, which we will discuss later on. Thread pool, because you have taught about event driver. Event driver is not, event loop is there. Which thread pool is present in Java? Thread pool is present in the Node.js engine. Okay. Event-driven architecture. Node.js is a property. Node.js is a feature called as event-driven architecture. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Event loop is different. Thread pool is different. Okay. Event loop is different. Thread pool is different. Thread pool contains the multiple threads which we associate to the operations that are non-blocking in nature, blocking in nature, and then over here event loop simply tracks the requests from the event queue and takes it one by one for the execution. That's what event loop does. So there are two different things. Now let's pay attention here. Now I will go here. Let me try to do one thing. I will simply create another folder in which the module which we will discuss is path. Okay. When we say path, what does path mean? Path simply means everywhere, whenever you go to a computer, you access a file. Don't you think that file inside the computer has a complete path? Maybe it is inside the main folder, then slash, it is in the videos folder, slash, then it is in the Adfar folder, slash, then the file name, right? So when we talk about files over there, a computer properly have different paths. We have two types of paths: absolute path and relative path. Can anyone tell me the difference between absolute and relative path? We will see that. In the meantime, put it in the chat. Over here, I will create a file with the name of index.js. Now see over here, please pay close attention. We know we have to execute this index.js. Right now, my terminal is in FS module. If you look at, let me try to drag it a little bit up. You can see my terminal is in FS over here. But where is my file? It's in path. So first I have to go back. Now when I say cd go back, what will I do? I will use dot dot. Okay, cd dot over this. Cd dot means go back. So if I simply click enter, you can clearly see, although cd dot dot is what we need to do, you can see cd dot dot means the go back a little bit. Now you can see it has gone back over here. After that, open path. So change directory to path. So I will simply click enter. Now path holds the terminal control. Now over here I can simply go and execute my code however I want. Now what we say as path, why do we need path? As I said, every file or every location inside our computer can be determined by a path. Now if you want to deal with the path over here, we can simply use what? Path module. So path module is a core module of Node.js which simply allows us to deal with the paths of our files or path of anything, not necessarily our files which are stored in our database, no, or in our computer, no. Any path you provided, it will actually allow you some of the functionalities of it. Let's see a very simple example over here to understand the same. First of all, I have a path module. I want to use it inside my code. What is the method that I'm going to use? I want every single person to type, especially new students. I want to use path module. The name of the module is path. Similar to FS, I have a path. So what is the method that I'm going to use? Quickly. I am going to use require method. Require method allows you to import not cd path, require method. Now I want to use it. Cd path means over here change directory. Change the current directory to that particular folder. That's what cd does. But if I have to require anything saved, I will use require method. So where path is equals to require. Require all the functionalities that you have within you, which means that Node.js has, require me that. Now if I simply go say console.log my path, now over here we can simply execute our node command and I can simply tell it, please execute node index file. Now once I execute index file over here, we can clearly see it returns us some code. It returns us an object over here in which there are a lot of methods. You can see I have a base name, extension name, format, dir, relative, join. Don't you think these all operations are related to a path? Like if I give you a path, I will tell you based on the path, give me the extension name. You will simply see the file dot extension name, it will give you, right? But from computer, how can you require a extension? You have to use a method from path, which we will see over here. Let me do one thing. Let me simply copy any path from the internet. Let's suppose over here, this path that I have, let me copy the same path. Okay. I want to simply create it in a variable. Okay. So let's suppose where my path P is equals to, I will simply put it in a string. Done. So simply this path or any random path from the internet, but we are pretty much sure that this is how our path looks like. Yes or no? Like we have folders, but the only difference is inside our coding, the paths will not have forward slash, but they will have backward slash. So we will simply write this slash, then we will simply write this slash, then we will simply write this slash over here. Since I copied it from the terminal, that's why it had forward slash. But if you go from the in your computer, they will have simply backward slashes like this, like this. Done? I hope this makes sense. So it's a normal path. But if we have to understand it, break it, can we say inside this path, let me create another file. This is the whole path of this file. This is the whole path of this file. So if I have to locate index.js in the computer, I will tell it inside root directory C, there is a users folder, then there's a legion folder, then desktop, August, backend path. So this is absolute path that I'm giving, the complete path that I'm giving. So this is called absolute path. Like I'm mentioning absolute path, complete path. I'm not missing anything. So from root to the source, every entire path is given. So this is absolute path. I hope this makes sense. Now over here with respect to this path, let's suppose I have in requirement, I have in my web development requirement where I want to combine multiple paths, or I want to simply extract a file name. What am I going to do? I am going to use different methods. Number one method that we have from this path variable is I will simply go say where my dir is equals to. And in this dir, I will simply tell it use the path module, and there is a method inside that we have dir name. Now in this dir name, I will pass p as an argument. What does it mean? It means check the path that is stored inside this p and tell me whatever its directory name is. So in this case, if I go and try to execute my code, we should be properly able to see the directory. So this index.js, this is the whole directory for this path, and we can clearly see, although I'm not consoling it, sorry. So console.log my dir. Now if I go here and try to execute this, we can clearly see for this index.js, this whole is the directory path. I know it because I am familiar with it. But if I want to perform the operation in my web development, I will simply use path module, its method, and you can clearly see it returns me this particular path. This is dir name. Similarly, let's suppose I want to simply say console.log, the path module, there is a method called as extension name. Please tell me from this path, what is the extension we are using. So in this case, if I try to go and execute this, we can clearly see the extension from this path that this module is able to extract is .js. Does it make any sense? Am I clear? Similarly, what if I want to extract the base name? So I will simply go Control C, Control V. The method that I will use is base name like this. So now if I go and try to execute this, we can clearly see base name is the file name itself, and we can simply see index.js. So the point is very simple, although you will very rarely use it in your backend development because we are going to completely shift our code to something else in today's class itself. So you will not use all of these things, but still we must have a small idea. Like if in any case, I as a developer am actually dealing with the path of files and I want to observe that path, analyze that path, then extract its information. In that particular case, I will use a module called as path module. And there are different what is this called methods that we have. Let me give you a very wonderful method that allows you to do everything. Okay, one of the methods, okay, let me directly put that. So I will simply say do one thing, use the path module, please parse. Now what does parse do? We will talk about that. Over here I will simply pass as an argument p. Let me try to comment all of this code over here. Okay, let me try to comment this. I don't want it to execute anything here. So let me comment it. And in this parse method, I will pass an argument p. And finally, after that, I will simply say where my a is equals to this one. Let's see what it does. So I am simply telling it, please observe this path and parse it. Now, what does parse do? We will see that. If I go in this case, let me do console.log a. And if I try to execute my code, we can clearly see it returns me object. in object, it simply breaks the path into multiple key value pairs. Number one is the path that you have given me. What is the root directory of it, which is this. Second thing is, what is the directory of it? The file that you have given me, what is the directory of it? Third is, what is the file name itself? Fourth is, what is the extension of that particular path? And finally, last one is name. What is the name of that path? So we have parsed over there, parse, a wonderful method inside path module, which simply allows me to extract it, break my path module into multiple key value pairs. That simply allows me to extract different information, whether it's root, dir, name, extension, base name. I hope this gives you a complete idea what we have. Let's suppose you don't have a path. Okay, let's suppose you have a object that looks like this. Let me try to copy it. Okay, so I will simply go and paste this object over here in a variable. So var obj is equals to an object that looks like this. Now, maybe in an interview, they will tell you, okay, this is the object that I'm giving you. Based on this, tell me what the path is. Based on this, tell me what the path is. So I'm simply trying to do the vice versa of parse. I passed the path, it gave me this object. Now I am giving it the object. I want it to give me the path out of it. In this particular case, what I will do is I will simply go and tell it what? Use a method of path module over here, which is called format. So I will simply go tell it where my path p is equals to, using the path module, I want you to format. Format what? The obj that I have given you. So please format this obj, and let me try to simply go console.log my p. Okay, so we have parse. What does parse do? Parse simply returns an object with all of these 4 or 5 properties. But if you look at this format method, it does the vice versa. So now if I go and execute this, we can clearly see it gives me a path that looks like this. So it simply extracts the information from all of this object and creates a single path out of it. But I have a simple question. If my base is index.js and then I give name as well, do you think name makes sense? No. Why? Because it's already in the base. So what if I will simply write something like this? Will it be part of the final path that will be extracted from it? Let's try to understand that. If I execute it, we can clearly see name of the file according to this data I am giving it this, but it's still making it index. Remember, when base is given, then extension and name, you can ignore them. It's not necessary you have to pass them. If you don't mention base in that particular case, you can simply mention this. Because don't you think extension and name, they are already covered in the base? Yes or no? Similarly, we have our root over there. Don't you think root is also covered in dir? The answer is yes. So even if I go make root something like this, we can clearly see as soon as I execute this, you don't see C colon and then FIRT. No, because why? It's already part of dir. So this is important when you try to format a path from the objective data, and this is important in this particular case. And you might be thinking, in web development, why will I use path? I will show you that. At this point of time, understand simple methods. I will show you everything where it is used in the web development. Even I'm pretty much sure, maybe in today's class, we will see an example. No, not necessary. No. Even if the path does not exist in your laptop, it's completely okay. Okay. Whatever path you are trying to observe, that's what you have to pass, Jerome. Okay. It's not doing any kind of validation. Even if the path does not exist in your system, it's completely okay. So it's simply treating it as a string. Whether it is a valid path or not, it will automatically, it does not care about that. So I can also see, if I go here in this particular case, let me try to uncomment it. What if I will write /Adfar? Do you think it's a valid path according to my local computer? Absolutely not. But even in this particular case as well, if I try to parse my P, if I try to control / this and then go here and try execute it, you can clearly see it still executes this particular, properly treats it and gives me a proper object. We can use import as well. Of course, we can use import, which we will also do. I hope this makes sense. Perfectly fine. Let's move forward to one of the very important modules which I actually want to discuss. Okay. Rest of the modules, I think you can automatically figure out, so I will not worry about it. The module which is very important, and let me put a message in the group as well, because we are going to start now HTTP module. Okay, I wanted to discuss OS module, but we will discuss OS module later on. So allow me a second and then we can start. In the meantime, please put yes or no in the chat. Are we clear? Are we clear with the things that we have discussed until now? Perfect, great. Let's move a little bit forward. Okay, please pay close attention now. I won't discuss operating system module because I have not used it anywhere in my web development. And I want to announce one thing today. Okay, once this backend module is completed, I am also going to start Gen AI batch, generative AI batch. Okay, and complete free batch. Although you will receive 2-3 classes. You can pass anything there. Jerome, as I said, whether you pass a correct path or not, it's completely up to you. But it has to be a path. It has to be in a structure that how path looks. So you can pass anything. Okay. So I was saying that we are going to start a Gen AI batch, generative AI batch once this batch is done. So let's see how that goes, but that's the plan as of now. Let me go and let me create a different folder. The name of the folder is HTTP folder. Please understand what I'm doing. When we talk about backend, there's one picture that comes into our mind, and that picture is that we are going to create our own servers, right? We are going to have our own servers. That's what picture comes in our mind. Let me create a simple website. Okay, so I will simply say index.html, and let me even write normal Adfar Rasheed in it. So it's a website that I have created which simply says Adfar Rasheed. Although I have not implemented a tag, you can implement them on your own, right? But if I want to open this web page in a browser, what do I need to do? I need to provide it a server so that this content can be displayed there. Yes or no? That's why inside our VS Code, we install a live server. So once I click on go live over here, we can clearly see it automatically opens up a server, opens up a port 5500 in our system where it displays Adfar Rasheed. But this is live server is there to help you out. But what if I don't want to do that? I want to create my own server so that I can serve my files to it. Right? What are servers? Servers are nothing but computers that are coded in a particular way so that they can accept requests and return a response properly. That's what a server means. And that's what our plan is. For that, if we want to use a core module, we have HTTP module. What is the module that we have? It's called HTTP module. Whenever we talk about sending a request or receiving a request, we simply say we have generated a HTTP request and we have received a HTTP response. So HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So it's a protocol which uses internally another protocol called as TCP protocol, with the help of which we establish a connection on the internet. You can read that on your own. But as of now, the website that I created, I simply created and told it that please open this web page on this port. So this is the server that I am assigning you. But I am taking an external help here. I am using an extension in my VS Code. I don't want to do it. I want to use my own server that I can create so that I can serve my own files to it. For that, inside your Node.js, there's a very important module which we have. It's called HTTP module. What's it called? HTTP module, which simply allows you to do anything related to servers. So if I want to use anything inside our HTTP module, what will I do? I will simply go inside the HTTP folder. I will create a file. Let's even name that file as server.js. Okay. So what am I doing? I'm simply saying server.js. Perfect. Now, HTTP is the module name. What is the method that I will use to simply import all of the functionalities of HTTP module? I will use a method called as require. So let me simply go say where HTTP is equals to, and I will simply say require over there, require what? HTTP like this. Perfect. If I try to go and try to say console.log my HTTP variable, because now whatever this particular thing returns, whatever HTTP module holds, everything over here is right now inside this variable, right? Now, if you look at this, it says the HTTP interface in Node.js are designed to support many features of the protocol which are traditionally difficult to use. So basically, what we want to do is we simply want to receive a request, send a response in the HTTP format. That's what we want to do. We want to communicate between we want to serve some file state so that it can be displayed, right? And for that, we will use HTTP module. Let me go. I have a simple question to all the new students, especially. Can I execute server.js file on this particular terminal inside our VS Code? Can I do that? Can I execute this server.js? If I write node and then server.js, what does it mean? It means inside the path folder, there must be a file called as server.js executed. But is that the case? No, it is not the case, Najim. So what do we need to do is we need to go and make sure we change the path. So we will simply tell it, go to the backend first and then open HTTP. How do we go back? We will simply say cd dot dot. Now I will tell it cd open my HTTP like this. So once I open it, now the path is on HTTP. Now if I go and execute my node server.js, we can clearly see it actually gives me an output. Now if I see the output, look at this. Look at this. Don't you think these numbers you are familiar with actually? Like you know what 404 not found means? You know what 400 bad request means? You know what 401 unauthorized means? Like you are talking about the status codes that you very frequently see when you are on the internet. 201, 200, 400, 401. So when you talk about those status codes, now that is nothing but a part of a module called as HTTP module. So if you want to use any functionality that resembles it, you have to use HTTP module. I hope that makes sense. Similarly, over there, you can drag a little bit up and you can see methods. You can see get method, copy, delete, and all of those methods over there. We can also see some other methods called as client and XYZ things. So now, at least if I'm not able to identify all of them, but I can clearly say that I am able to look at the data that looks familiar to me as a user of the internet. When I go on the internet over here, let me simply go here. Let's suppose I will simply say www.amazon.in. What does it mean? It means I am trying to send a request to the Amazon servers. And if I go inside the inspector tool over here, and if I try to go to the network, let me try to make a new request. If I go to amazon.in, you can clearly see whenever I make a request to the amazon.in, it gives me a status code called as 200, which is okay. So 200 is the response status code that it actually gives me, tells me the request that you try to make, it's okay. Okay means I have given you the response and I'm making a get request over there on this particular endpoint, on this URL. Similarly, the same things you can see over here as well. You can clearly see now with help of HTTP module, we got a status code called as 200. I hope this also makes sense. But now we understood, okay, we have seen that HTTP module is the one, although we still don't know how to actually create a server. So how do we create a server? We use a method of HTTP called as create server. That's how simple it is. So I will simply say where my server, create a variable with the name of server is equals to, using the same HTTP variable, I simply want you to create a server. Done. Now, when I talk about server, there are two things that are always associated with server. The requests it will receive, the responses it will send. So internally over there, they receive a function like this. And then over here, internally, this function receives two arguments, two objects. One is called request, another one is called response. Because when we talk about servers, they are capable of two things. They accept the request, understand the information within it, understand the instructions within it, and then return a response. So we have create server. Internally, it receives function as an argument. That function internally receives request comma response. So request is nothing but an object which simply allows me to write all the things related to request, and response is simply what I want in the response. I hope this makes sense. Perfectly fine. Am I clear? Do we understand this? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. Am I clear? Done. Now, what do I want to do? I simply want that inside this, whenever anyone tries to access this server, I simply want that in the response, please send a response. What? I simply want you to please send a response over there. What is that response? Although not send date, so I will simply say, let's say write method. So instead of saying this, let's say write method. Response dot write. This is what I want to do. Write something. Now, what do I want to write? I simply want to make sure that it writes a simple welcome to my page, not age, but page. Do we have any modules like HTTP Node.js? No, we do, I don't think so. I'm not sure, but I've never used any HTTPS model. Even we don't even use HTTP model. We will use Express later on. But this will give you a clear understanding like why we need Express. Okay. I don't think we have HTTPS modules. If we have, simply require it and see how it works. So what am I doing over there? I'm simply telling it, hey, whenever anyone goes here on this server, I simply want you that on this server, if anyone sends a request, please write the response called as welcome to page. But you guys tell me one thing. When I had index.html and I made that live, it was listening to a port called as 5500. Similarly, the server I am trying to create over, I must tell it now which port you have to take and then show this response over here. So for that, we use a method called as server.listen. Tell this server to listen to a port, any port that you pass. Let's suppose 4000 port number, and then ask it to execute a function for the confirmation, while it will simply say, what is it going to say? It's simply going to say, listening to port 4000. So console.log, simply listening to port 4000. Now, this is something that's very important over here. Why is it important? Because unless we created our server, this is the method that we will use, but we have to somehow tell it that you have to listen at this port where you will give me the response. Now, if I go here and if I now try to execute my code, and let's see what the output is going to be. So in this case, if I try to go and say node server.js, what does it say? It gives me a output. But does it give me a terminal back? If you look at this, does it give me a terminal back? It does not give me a terminal back. Why? Because right now port is running, server is running, it's still listening. Let's go to the port number 4000. Let's see how it works. So if I go here, in this case, let me simply say on my local host in my local computer, please go and access 4000. If I click enter, it does not give me anything. It's simply executing it, which looks like it simply looks like that it's waiting for something, because it's not giving me 404 as well, not right. It's not giving me that as well. It's not giving me 400. It's not giving me anything. It's simply trying to run over there, which means it's still executing the request. But unfortunately, it's not giving me the response. The reason for that is whenever we talk about our HTTP, whenever you go and implement response.write, it means display this response. But somehow I have to also inform it that only this is the response that you will receive. You are not going to, you don't have to show any more response than this. So for that, I must go and tell it at this point of time, after this response is ending. So this is the response that you will receive. After that, you are not. So it means now it knows I don't have to wait anymore. So if I write response.write, in that case, it says, okay, response.write is there, but there may be a little bit more. So it's waiting for that data. But when I say response.end, it means response is done. You are not going to receive any more response in this case. But now I need to stop my server. So Control C over here in the terminal. Since right now server is running, you must stop it first and then run it again to see the change. So Control C. Now when I say Control C, now I will go here and execute again. And now you can see it says listening to port 4000. Now if I go here, refresh my page, we can clearly see our data there. Now this is your server, the server that you created. Did I click on go live? Of course not. That's how simple servers are inside our backend, inside our Node.js. So we have our server which is listening to port 4000, and in this particular case, it's simply displaying me welcome to my page. And that's where it knows that only this much response I have to receive. Maybe I want to display more response. So you can simply say response.write. What if I want to display a response in an HTML tag? I can simply go say response.write over there. And then please pass an H1 tag. H1 means a heading tag, where I will simply say please subscribe if you have not already, by the way, like this, right? Maybe this is what I want to do. Now, if I even go right now in the website and try to refresh my page, it won't show any change. Why? Because server is still listening to the previous instance. So I have to stop this, Control C, and then execute the server again. So once I execute the server again, go to my output right now, we can clearly see it actually gives me all of this. But right now, if you look at this, the response dot right over there inside that, we can clearly see the h1 tag is like this. I will talk about that in a second. So you can see over here, I have given h1, but it has displayed it like text over here. So instead of making it in the right, I can also pass it in the end as well. Will it work over there? So let me see if it works here. So what I will do is I will simply Control C this, Control execute this. And now if I go in the output and refresh my page, we should be able to see, although it's not, I'm not able to see that. Why? Because there might be some reason for it. Let me remove all of this code. For a second, I will come back to all of these things. Let me stop it. Let me go back over here. Let me try to refresh my page. Right now, I'm not implementing anything. Why? Okay, I have not executed my server. So let me go here and execute my server. Now, if I execute my server and refresh my page, we are able to see it h1 tag. I will tell you what's happening now. See, first of all, let's answer the Harsh's question. Harsh, let's suppose I am simply writing multiple response dot writes like this. This is the response that I want. A response dot write, welcome to my page. And similarly, there might be some other data as well, but it's only response dot write. In this case, when I will make a request to the port 4000, the port which I have mentioned over here, it means I am simply telling it, give me the response. But since I have not told it that this is the only much response that you will receive, it is still waiting for the complete data packet that it will give you. It's still waiting. So somehow I have to tell it now only this is the response that you have to display. So for that, we have to somehow close this loop. So we need to implement response.end like this. So now if I go here and if I try to go to the output, refresh my page, we can clearly see, although I have not made a stop test server. So let me stop my server and execute the server again. Now if I go here, refresh my page, we can clearly see all the data. But if I don't implement over the response.end, in this case, let me try to stop my server and execute it. Now, if I go to the output and try to refresh my page, we can see it is still running. Why? Because it's expecting the entire response from you. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So response.end is very, very important. Now, here's one very important thing. Do you think that you see on websites your web page only this much, like a text, welcome to this, welcome to that? No, you see a complete web page, right? You see a complete web page in front of your website. Like Amazon, there are images, there are audio, there's a video, there's a text, buttons, XYZ things. Like this was just to show you like how servers are created. We have to use a method called as create server, and then we have to make sure the server that I created, it listens to a port. It was only for that. But eventually we need to understand, we have to make sure that our server displays a proper website in the output. A website which is our index.html. Yes or no? A website which is our index.html. Multiple tags, multiple design over there. So it is, we have to make sure our server is designed for such operation. Another very important thing. You need to understand that when we talk about our web application, it's not our website will be only on home route, www.amazon.in. No, but there might be /about as well, right? There might be /contact as well. There might be /contact/Adfar as well. It means the routes, different routes might be there. And whenever any user access those routes, we would want it to give us different output. That's what we would want eventually. That's what our complete website should be. That's how our complete server should be. So we have to make sure we will actually create our servers in a way so that they can display such content. Now see, the next 1 hour is going to be very important because I'm going to show you both. Although we are not going to use HTTP module to create servers, we will use later on Express.js, which we will learn in our tomorrow's class. Okay. But this whole thing will give you an idea like how difficult it is and how not readable it is. So please pay close attention. I will go here and let me try to comment this code. Okay. After that, let me try to click enter a lot of enters. But remember, this server is listening to port 4000. So please make sure that I have already created that. Now I will simply go
create a file with the name of server. Done. In this, I will simply tell it use the HTTP. Inside that, there's a method called as create server. Now, internally, this create server receives a function as an argument, which in turn receives more two arguments. What are those? Those are our request comma response. Perfectly fine. Now, what will I do? I want different routes. I want slash about, I want slash contact, I want slash this and that. So I can simply use now one very important thing before I talk about that. When we say I have written a URL and I will click enter, what does it mean? It means I am making a request on this URL. So this particular URL is nothing but part of the request object. So I can simply use if else on that. I can simply say if my request.url is equals to slash. If it is home page, in that particular case, I would want it to display a file. Let me create a simple file which will be index.html, in which I will simply go create a boilerplate. Let me have an h1 tag, and that h1 tag simply says welcome to my website. This is what I want. That this web page that I have, if I try to make this website live without our server, with using the live server, this is how this website looks like. But I want to serve now this index.html to a server that I have created. Now on which path? On my slash path. Okay. Now you guys tell me one thing, one simple thing. Does server.js over here know there is a file with the name of index.html? Of course not. Unless and until we don't implement file handling. We don't tell it that there's a file over there with the name of index.html, read the file and display it. Now, that's where FS will come into picture. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? That's where FS will come into picture. We can also store it in a folder as well. Let me store it in a folder with the name of, let's say, it contains my static files. Okay. So in this folder, I will create all of the images and all of the files that my website shows. So for that, I need FS module. So I will require another module over here. I will create a variable, which simply means require what? My FS module. Perfectly fine. After that, inside this, I will simply tell it, please do one thing. Let me simply create a file is equals to, using the FS module, I would want you to read. Let's use read file sync. Inside this, I will simply tell it, from my current, please go, when I say dot slash, it means open the current folder where this file exists. So open HTTP folder, it open static. Then open that as well. There's a file called as index.html. Done. Sir, can we not require index.html? What does that mean? Please elaborate that out. And then what is the second argument that we need to use over here? Because we want to read it properly. If we read our data in this manner, we know our Node.js is going to return us buffer data. Remember that? Buffer data. But over here, to make sure it is properly in the format which it is mentioned, we will use UTF-8. Done. I hope this makes sense. Perfectly fine. Now, after that, I have read the content of our file over here, right? In this case, if I simply go and tell it now, in the response, please end my response with the file that I have. So you can also do this as well. In the response.end, you can also share what you want to respond, what you want to see in the response. So response.end, my file that I have. Do you think it will work? Sir, can we not write where page? No, we cannot do that. We can require means require a module. Index.html is not a module. It's a simple HTML file which simply contains HTML code. Yes, if it would have contained any function that we would have exported out from there, then we would have required it over here. But that's not how it's going to work here. Let's see how it works, whether it works or not. So let me simply go here in this case and let's try to open our terminal, which I'm not able to. So let me try to. Perfect. Over here, let me simply go and stop my terminal here, and let me simply go and try to execute this node.server. So it is executing on localhost of 4000. What does slash, by the way, mean? Slash means the home page, www.homepage.com, the main domain, which is localhost of 4000 in this case. So if I refresh my page, you can clearly see it says welcome to my website. Now, if you want as well, you can simply go to index.html over here. You can simply put a p tag in which I will simply put lorem, too much of text, 500 words over there. Now, if I stop my server and go here and execute my code, so if I stop my server and execute my server again, you can clearly see if I refresh the page, I am able to see complete website. So we found a way how we can serve our static HTML file to the server. We simply will use fs module over here, and in this fs module we would simply tell it to read the file, use utf-8, and then pass that inside the response if my request.url is slash. Is that clear? Very wonderful. Please like this video if you have not already. Okay, now over here, can I implement style on this particular code? Can I implement style? The answer is yes, we can implement style over here. So let me go style. In this style, I will tell it the h1 tag that you have. For this, please implement background color red. Then implement a border over there. Make border 2 pixel. The color of border as blue, and then make it solid, complete solid. Now, if I stop my server to see the changes, we have to stop this server and execute it again. So if I go here and refresh my page, we can clearly see our style implemented as well. So can we say if we have a website, now we have found a way using FS module to serve it properly to a server? Yes or no? Yes or no? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. Very good. We found a way. And also, I can right now do one another thing, which is everyone put a yes or no in the chat. Okay. We can also do one thing now. Else, if my request.url is equals to slash about. In that particular case, I would simply want you to end my response. So response.end with what? With an h1 tag, and that h1 tag simply says about page. Like this. You can also put a about.html here as well, since I have already told you how to do that, so you can figure out that on your own now. Similarly, I can simply go and say console.log. Let me simply put again here. In this case, I can simply go say contact like this. It simply says contact page. Else, finally, if no route is matched, in that particular case, I can simply tell it response.end over there. Please display, what are we going to display? Display an h1 tag or display simply error page like this. Now to see the output over here, we have to stop the server and execute the server again. And now if I go in the output, we can clearly see home route properly works, slash about over there. If I go on this, it also works. Not only that, if I go here, write slash contact, it also works. If I write anything else, it gives me an error page. Perfectly fine. Our server is properly working, but there are issues. There are issues that we need to understand properly. Complete issue and valid issues. But at this point of time, do you think creating servers, at least basic servers, is a task? That's what we will do eventually, go in step by step, step by step. Do you think servers, now all the new students especially who have never done JavaScript, do you think this is at least we are able to understand all of these things that we're doing? So practice. Once the class is done, practice, create the server on your own. See how you can serve the files, okay, to a server that we have. I hope that makes sense. But right now, there's a small issue that we have. If we go in this particular file, let me add an image tag. Image tag means I want to display an image inside my website. Now, for that, what I will do is I will simply create an image on the internet, or I will simply have a folder, and inside that folder, I will have an image, anything from the internet or from this. So what I will do is I will simply go over here on the internet and let me simply search an image. Let's say cat image. I always take cat images. I don't know why. So let me try to click on this, and this image, let me try to save. So save image as. Inside my desktop, there is a folder with the name of August. So August 24. There's a folder backend. There's a HTTP. Inside that, there's a static folder. I want to save images.jpg here. So this is the image that I want to display. Okay. So I want, what do I want? I want to display an image. I hope that makes sense. Now you can also store this file somewhere else as well. It's completely up to you. Whatever you want to do, image or any other file. Now I want to link this file over here. So source of the image is images.jpg. Now, if I go live with this web page, if I go live with this website without my server, we should be able to see completely our server image over here, image properly working. But will this image work there? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows, right? But let's see that. So I will simply go here, stop my server, and then execute my server here. And if I try to, let's hope it works, because in that case, we will not have to do work. So if I click on this, do you see an image? Do you see an image? No, we don't see an image. Now, image is not there. It is if we are serving it to the server that VS Code gives me. In that case, image is there. But now image is not there. Why? Let's understand that. Not only that, let's suppose instead of having images.jpg here, instead of having inline style, I want internal style, I want to create external style. Because eventually you guys will perform external style, right? You will have a separate file in which you will write all the coloring and design of a web page. You will not write style in the same file. So let's suppose this H1 that I have, this H1 is not, nowhere, it's actually here. Okay, maybe there's some other code. For my p tag, I would simply want to implement a background color which is aqua in nature. Maybe I want to implement padding, and then this padding is nothing but 30 pixels, something like this. If I go live with this particular code, we should be clearly seeing our website properly working, right? Although I have not linked the style, so let me link style properly. So link over there my CSS, in which the file name is style.css. So if I go live with this website now, you can properly see every CSS working, image is working. But this server is our server of VS Code, live server, that extension that we have, external server, not our server. But now if I go here to my own server where CSS is implemented, and now if I go here and try to stop my server and execute it, let's see whether it works or not. So now if I refresh my page, you don't even see now CSS as well. You don't even see CSS as well. So what is the issue? So this issue we will understand properly, and we will actually understand if we would have to create our server using Node.js, how we would actually create that, making sure images work, style work, or anything that comes with the website works properly. We will understand after the break. So do not even think of leaving the class. Stay here in the class, even in the break as well. Okay. And I will also give an assignment today itself related to the same example, which we will solve after the break. Okay. So please make sure you stay here up till end. Do not leave in the break as well. We will take a break of 10 minutes and then we will start again and understand what the solution is, what is the problem as well, why it's not displaying the style as well as everything. Please make sure you stay here. Okay. See you guys. Bye. Hey guys, hi everyone, welcome back. They will ask you to create a simple server using HTTP. Yes. They will ask you about modules. Yes. They will ask you about path module, file module, and HTTP module. These are the three important modules inside Node. There are a lot of other modules that we have. A lot of other modules. Stream event emitter is one of the modules. We have operating system, another module. So there are modules that we have which we do not use that much nowadays because there are a lot of easier ways that we have right now. But yes, modules are asked. Hello Ankit, hello Roshan, hi Arka, hi everyone. Okay, let's start. Let's understand the problem first. Okay, and I hope like everyone remembers what we were discussing before 10 minutes. And now let's try to find the solution for the same over here as well. Okay, right now the problem is this is my website which I am serving on the server. Over here, whenever the request.url is slash, I am telling it to please serve a file which is on this path and put it over here. Properly works. But this is my code. And if I go live with the code that I have, we can clearly see in this code we have image as well as proper coloring and maybe some other things over here as well. Maybe, right? Maybe some other paths that we have. Now, why is it working here in this case and why is it not working here in this case? Let's try to understand that. Okay, let me use writing pen for this and please try to understand this. Sir, can provide some guidance about CS fundamentals from where we prepare and what we will talk about the interview questions later on. So in how many ways can we create a server? One method is using, another one is this. We use only these two, and right now we use only Express. We don't use anything else, Ankit. Okay. Now pay attention, close attention. What's happening? Tell me one thing. This is image is a separate file, right? This style.css that we have here, it's in the separate location and I'm creating a link with this particular HTML file. Okay. Now, how is it working in this website? Let me try to make you understand that. I will go inside the inspect tool. I will simply go to the network tab and I will simply try to make a request. So when I make a request over there, we can clearly see in order to display content on this web page, it's making requests on three things: index.html, style.css, and images.jpg. So it is trying to find in this particular location, trying to make a request on three things: index.html, style.css, images.jpg. Perfectly fine. Now, when I go here in this document, and if I go inside the inspect over here as well, if I go to network, it means it will try to make the request on these three again. So if I refresh my page over here, we can clearly see inside this local host, it is making the request on our local host, which is on the local host content, completely okay. Then it is trying to make a request on style.css as well, and then images.jpg. Perfectly fine. And if the request of style.css is successful, it will display the style. If it is successful on image, it will display the image. But if you look at the server that we have, when I try to open style.css, over here, you look at this, it says okay, perfectly fine. Over here, okay. But let's try to understand now why is it not working? What's the issue over here because of which I am not able to see the things? Let's understand that in our code. If I go inside my server, let me do one thing. Let me simply try to implement console.log my file. Let's see what it will print. If I go inside my terminal here and please pay attention. And when I say console.log file, what does that mean? Whatever content I am reading from this file, please console this. So let me stop my server and execute my server. And in this particular case, although we are not able to see the console here, why? Because it's part of the server. So although even here as well, it won't be there. Now let me refresh the page, and of course it will be after that. We can see our console here. So in this case, if you look at this whole file is nothing but a text that somehow looks like this head and body over here. So it is this particular content which you see inside the index.html. So that's what is inside my file. Now simply it takes that content and places it over here. Now when it places the content inside this file, do you think over there style.css exists? a link exists from this particular location? Of course not. So it's not able to make a request on style.css. It's not able to find that. It's not able to find image. It's not able to find style.css. Why? Because it treats it normally as a content there, as a tag there. That's it. But it's not able to create the link. Do you understand? Yes or no? Give me a quick confirmation. Give me a quick confirmation. So whatever it reads from the read file sync in this file, I am directly pasting it here. So it will be pasted as normal content there. But then it has to create a connection. It has to make sure that I will make a request on style.css, which is it's not able to. It needs to make sure that I have to make a request on this, which it's not able to. So that is what the issue is. So somehow this is what's happening over. If you look at this, when I am inside the network tab, we can clearly see. Now, if I go and refresh the page, what is the path that I actually have? Let's try to find out that. For style, the path is localhost 4000 style.css. And do we have any such file inside that? No, we don't have. We don't have that. Similarly, if I try to make an image.jpg, we don't have that over here as well inside this particular thing. But if I go inside my another website, when I click on style.css, yes, this path exists inside this particular location. This particular path exists inside this particular location. That's why it's able to see it. But over here, it's not able to make the request as well. So that's why we have to understand a solution. Now, please pay attention what is solution I will implement. So I will go here and I will simply try to create a new file, let's suppose. In this case, I will simply write my index.js. In this index.js, I will create my server. So index.js. Okay. Let's ignore this as well. Let's ignore this as well. Let's ignore server as well. In order to create a server, what's the module that I used? I use HTTP, where HTTP is equals to modules which I have to require like this, HTTP. Similarly, I know I need a file module as well. So I will simply go say where file is equals to a module which is required in this case. And then I will simply go and implement a file as well, FS module as well. Perfectly fine. There are a lot of modules. Someone asked me, now, how many modules are there? A lot of modules. Go on the internet and see how many modules we have. There's a documentation, although the difficult documentation, if there is for anything, it's for Node.js, according to me. So you can still go to Node.js official documentation. You can see how many modules are there. Now pay attention here. Now what I have done, I have simply created a HTTP module. I have simply imported my file system module. Now I need to create a server. What's the method? Simply constant create a server variable is equals to simply using my HTTP module. Inside this, I will simply go create a server. Done. After that, I will simply go pass request comma response over here like this. If anyone does not know what this syntax is, it's a fat arrow syntax of a function. This is how we represent our functions in fat arrow, but it's also a function. You don't have to write function keyword. I hope that makes sense. Now over here, what is it that we are looking at? I will, first of all, please, darna nahi, don't get scared over here. Please and please wait for some time. I will write 5 things. You have to just understand what's happening. Let me tell you what we need to understand. Let's understand this. If you look at this document, let's understand the analogy over here, what we are trying to achieve. At this point of time, we simply are reading file from a path that is our /static folder. Inside that, there is a file called as index.html. Now, when am I reading this file? I am reading this file when my request.url is on the local host 4000 on the slash. But now, according to this, you can clearly see when I am trying to make a request on this local host, if I want to access style.css, this is the path that we have to use. This is the request.url that becomes. If you look at this, if I talk about style.css, I want it to display style.css, it simply means this style.css for this is the request.url that becomes. Yes or no? If you look at this, it is trying to find style.css. It's not like it's not trying, it is trying to find style.css. But if you look at this, when it is trying to find style.css, what is my path that becomes? Path becomes this. Now, don't you think I will simply tell it somehow when path becomes this at that point of time, instead of making the content this, please try to locate a file in the style.css in that particular static folder that we have. Do you understand? Find that particular file inside the static folder that we have. At this point of time, it's only pointing to index.html. But I will simply tell if this becomes my path, then in that particular case, go inside the static folder and find style.css and give it to me. Then also I will simply tell it later on, if you look at this, when I am trying to make a request on this, what is the path that becomes? The path that becomes over here is images.jpg. So in this case, I will also tell it, please, whenever you go to this particular, whenever this becomes my request.url, it simply means at that point of time, I will tell it to read the content of images.jpg, which it's not able to do right now. If it does not make sense, let me try to rephrase it in a very easier way. If you look at this style.css, don't you think this request to URL exactly means this slash style.css? This is the request it's trying to make in order to get the style from the index.html. This is the request it's trying to make according to this particular request. Yes or no? Tell me that at least. Done. So when I click enter over there, it's not able to find this path. That's what the issue is. Okay, it's not able to find this path. Perfect. Now over here, similarly, when I will go and try to make a request on this same page, if it is trying to find image, it simply means actually it is simply trying to execute something like this, images.jpeg, something like this. But right now, according to the code that I have mentioned, it will display only index.html when the path is something like this, right? So what will I do? I will simply tell it, do one thing. Hey, you have displayed my file over there. In this file, you have simply told it to read the content from index.html. But internally, when I put that text over here, when I put that content over, it's making request to style.css. But it's not able to locate that file. That's what the issue is. It's not able to locate that file. So I will simply tell it, when my request.url becomes style.css, in that particular case, please tell this file to read the content not from index.html, read it from style.css. Similarly, when my request.url becomes any other thing, maybe images.jpg, in that case, don't make it like this, read the content from images.jpg. So I am going to make it a dynamic reading of a path. Dynamic. At this point of time, it's reading only from one source of point. That's what we will do. So we will simply, we need to tell it based on what my request.url is, change the path that you have and then read the content later on. So we have to change the path depending on what my request.url is. So now when we say change the path, do we have any module that allows me to deal with paths? Do we have any module that allows me to deal with the path? Yes, we have path module. That's why I told you every module can be used. So what I need to do is I need to simply go here. In this case, I will simply go inside index.js and I will simply use one another path over there. So where my path is equals to require path. Perfect. Now look at this. Now understand one very important point. When we say path, we cannot give it an absolute path. We have to tell it how paths are related and how I can reach from here to there. How can I reach from this particular index.html to this particular path? From this path to the path that is inside static folder. We have to do that, right? So what do we need? We need current directory first, where this file is located. Is that what we need? Current directory first. Current directory first, where I am currently working. That's what I need. In order to get current directory over there, we have a specific keyword. We can simply use our method, which is called a dir name. So console underscore dir name. If you simply try to access it, let me go here inside the console and let's see what it is. So if I try to, come on, how much big it is? Okay. So let me try to stop the server, and now I will simply go and tell it to clear my entire terminal. Now I will simply say node Right now it's an HTTP module which is correct node index.js, and if I execute it, you can clearly see it returns me the path where this index.js is. So it returns the current path. So if you want to simply return the current path where you are working, underscore dir name is what you need in your backend. And there's a too much application for this, too much application. So remember this down, note it down on your rough copy. I hope that makes sense. Now, in this case, instead of consoling, it was just to tell you what we need. So what I will do is I will simply go and I will simply say, let me create a variable. So let my file path is, which is what is called dynamic in nature. In this, I will simply tell it, use my path module. There's a method which we did not discuss deliberately because I knew I had to discuss it here, which is called join. What does join method do? Join method simply joins multiple paths together. So it will receive one argument, two arguments, three arguments. Whatever those arguments are, it will simply combine them. Okay. Now, if you look at this, I simply want to create a path that will reach to this index.html. So what will I do? I will simply tell it, take the path that is for this current directory. So dir name, comma, and then the folder name, combine it with static folder. So can we say this particular variable simply points to this static folder? You may yes or no. Simple join means join the path. So dir name slash static. So dir name is this particular path. Then slash over there static. So automatically it opens up this folder. Yes or no? Now, if I tell it over there, after that, combine it with index.html. Don't you think we are doing again same thing? Index.html. We are simply doing same thing. We are simply reaching to only index.html, which we do not have to do. Now, in this case, if instead of doing index.html, I will implement a ternary operator, if else. So I will simply say, if my request.url is equals to slash, in that particular case, please combine it with index.html. If that is not the case, whatever at that point of time request.url is, please combine it with that. Now I will give you 10 seconds over there to observe what's happening. Do we guys know what this operator is? All the new students especially. If not, I will explain quickly. Do we know what this is? Note of interrogation colon means? It's a ternary operator. It simply means if this condition is true, it will simply make this over there argument of this particular method. If this is not true in that particular case, it will simply treat this. I hope ternary operator is very clear, right? Now tell me, do you understand what I tried to explain you? We need to make dynamic path. We have done that. We have made that. Yes or no? All the new students, especially. If you have even a little bit of confusion, I will repeat. Don't worry about it. We have a lot of time. Does it make sense? If in case it does not for few students, let me make you understand what it is. dir is simply current directory, which is this particular path. Then please put static. So it will simply put static over here like this. Then combine it with a condition. Now, if my request.url is slash means home page. And if you look at this particular logic, we told it, if the request.url is slash, then display file. File means nothing but index.html. That's what we are still doing. If request.url is slash, make it, please read the path, make the path as index.html. Right? Now, if slash in that particular case, it will simply put index.html here and simply make that path. Means it is trying to find the path for this file. Done. But what if I have request.url not slash but style.css? Don't you think if request.url is style.css, it means after static, it will simply put style.css? It will simply put, if this is not the case, if it is images.jpeg, in that case, it will simply put after static images.jpg. Now, I want every single person, all the 44 students over here to tell me yes or no in the chat. All the students, whether we understood what this line of code means. So does it mean second URL will take value? Of course, because every single time you are making requests, so it will receive. Since it's a server, it will know what request.url contains. Done? Perfect. If that's what it means, let's move a little bit forward. Now, one very important point. If you go on any web page, over here, you can clearly see we have some data that we can extract related to that web page. Number one is, for example, we have request method get, request URL is this URL that I'm trying to access. Similarly, over here, we have this URL, get method 200, okay, so on and so forth. Then we have headers, like response headers we have, request headers we have. It simply means we are trying to set some rules. Like these are the information instructions that we want to send you. For example, for this web page, we are simply telling it, we are going to, please, we are going to accept only text/HTML. We are going to accept application XHTML, and then similarly, so on and so forth. We are going to accept image, WebP, so on and so forth. So it means headers are nothing but instructions, information that we wrap inside the request, and then we receive it. They're simply information like what we want. That's what headers mean. Now, by default, let's suppose I am accessing a home page. So in that particular case, what is the content type that we are displaying? What is the content type we are displaying? We are displaying content type as text/HTML. So by default, I know since I will go to home page, by default, I would want text/HTML. So let me simply create a variable with the name of content type is equals to, and then I will simply say, do one thing, text/HTML. Okay, let me keep only this much at this point of time. This is what I'm going to do. I don't want to do anything else. I will not even use it. Let's see if it works without using this. Now, what I will do is I will simply say, using fs, I would want you to read file. Okay. Read file on what? Read file on my file path. The file path that you have created. Now, whatever this file path is, it depends on what my requester.url is. It depends on that. Comma. Then over here, I will have a callback function as an argument. A function as an argument. Let me not put it as a fat arrow function. For your better understanding, let me put it as a normal function. Now, either this asynchronous operation will give me an error, or it will simply give me a success, a data over there. So two options can be there. So either it will give me an error, or it will simply give me the content that I'm looking for. Perfect. Now over here, what does fstat means? It's a fs, right? Okay, I have created the f file variable. So let me make this fs. So fs.read file on the path that we are passing, and then please ask it to execute the function. If the reading is done, in that case, it will return me the content. Otherwise, it will give me an error. Now over here, I will simply tell it if I have an error, if there is any error, if in case there is an error, I would simply want you, let me even do one thing. Let me create one another page over here with the name of whatever you want. It's completely up to you. I will simply say 404.html. Okay. So maybe in this particular case, I will create a fantastic error page, which will, whatever you design, you will put, but it simply says error page like this. So if in case while making a request inside my output, if in any case there is an error, I am not able to make a read on this particular path. In that particular case, make something like this. Then if that's not the case, in that case, I would simply want you to read file. Then in that case, I would want you to read file while you are simply going to read a file on path.join with __ dir name. And then inside that, there's a folder called as static. And then inside that, there is a file called as 404.html like this, right? And then, of course, this reading that's going to happen, it's also going to have a function as an argument like this, which will either have error over there or it's going to have a content. Now, in this particular case, I would simply want it to make sure that it is simply returning me the content over there with the content that I actually have, the content that I receive like this. Is this clear until now, guys? I don't think there should be any confusions within this, right? That if there is any error, the request that I'm trying to make on this, if I'm not able to read the content, in that case, simply tell it that please read the content over there on 404 HO file. And if that is clear, give me the content of that. I hope that makes sense. But else, now else what should it do? Okay, else what should it do? It should simply go here, else over here. In the else part, we would simply want it. In that particular case, please read. Although this else is not here, This else is here for the if, because if is closed over here. So else, please send the content over there and the content with what? With the content that we have in this particular case, like this. Let's see whether it works or not. Am I clear? I hope this makes sense. It's a very simple, straightforward code that when I try to read the file over there on this particular path that I have, either it will be a success or not. If it is error, give me the 404.html content. If not, then whatever content you receive from this file path, display me that in the response that I have. Let's see if it works or not. Hopefully it should. If not, we will see what the problem is. So I will simply go and tell it node index.js. If I try to execute, it does not give me anything. Can anyone tell me what are we missing in this case? Come on, look at it. Because we have created servers before this as well. There's one thing that we are missing. What is that? What is that, guys? We have created a server, but we are not letting the server know where to listen. So I will simply go here. I will simply tell it for this server, please ask it to listen on a port 8000, and then please tell it to execute a function where I will simply say console.log listening to 488,000 port, just a confirmation. Now, if I go here, execute my node, we can clearly see it should give me a message. Let's see. It does not. Why is that? Server is the variable name server. It is server. I'm not using content type. Then what is the issue? Okay. Sorry. I'm missing this over here, and then I'm missing this. Perfect. Now, if I try to stop my server and execute it here, if I stop my server and then go execute, it should say listen to port 8000. Perfectly fine. Now, let me go here. Let me make it listen to 8000 port. If I click enter, it says the site can't be reached. The site can't be reaching. Okay. Now, it says fs.read file is not a function. fs.read file is a function. fs.read. Okay. So over here we have read file. So it must be f capital. So we have read file. F is capital. That's what the issue is. So let me go and let me write f capital. Done. So now it should be working. So if I execute this server, let me go here and let's refresh the page. Now, if I refresh the page, it still gives me an error, which is absolutely, there's nothing wrong in that. But over here, you can see server is still working, which means server is working, and yet somehow I am not able to see the output. It is waiting for the response. And I got some document over here, and our things are working. Are we clear? Are we clear? Yes or no? Are we clear? What we did? So we had to implement a dynamic path. Dynamic path. What dynamic path we have to pass? So this server that I created, it is completely making sure every single time it goes to that particular path based on what my request.url is. Now, if you look at this particular code over here, we can clearly see, not this code actually, but over, if I go to inspect tool, inside this inspect, if I go to network, when I make a request again, we can see now when it makes a request on style.css, request.url changes over there, and when request.url changes, automatically this particular thing is implemented. So it will find the style.css and make it part of it. Similarly, images.jpg or any other static file that we have. This is how we implement our things. If we want to make sure every single time it works, we can add a proper headers in it. We can tell it what the header should be. Okay, and tell it that please accept text/html, text/css, text/javascript, image over there, which is in the form of png, which is in the form of jpg, which is in the form of jpeg, or anything, whatever kind of. Sometimes my website might end up that we are not able to display the data, some data that we have. Okay, in that case, what does header do? They are simply information that how my response should be. They are simply like the rules that we are setting. That's what headers mean, and we will go to headers later on moving forward, that what headers actually mean. Now, as I said, and if you look at this now, I have not used this text/html over here. I have created a variable. I have not used it. The reason is because it automatically accepts text/html, CSS, and images. It automatically sends that with the header. But what if there's a file? Let's suppose, let's imagine there is a file type, an extension type, which it's not able to display. What am I going to do in that case? Let's try to go and understand that. Okay, let's suppose over here it's trying to make a request on a file where the extension is not CSS, it's something else which is not passed in the default header. So what am I going to do? I have to pass it in the header now. Let's suppose there's a file with the text with the extension .txt. So if the extension is .txt, make sure this file is properly fetched in the browser and displayed. Images it display, CSS display, JavaScript display, HTML display. But there might be sometimes. So for that reason only, I'm going to show you one extra thing over here. For that reason only. Although we have our solution, we don't need anything else. So what I will do is I will simply go and tell it one thing. I want to extract the extension from this path. How can I extract the extension? What is the method that we use? What is the method? Path.ext name, right? So I will simply go here. I will simply tell let my ext name is equals to from the file path. Although use the path module, there is a method called as extension name and pass the file path. Since file path is dynamic in nature, it depends on the request.url. So it will be either style.css, it will be all .css, .js, .html, .txt, .png, anything, whatever my request.url becomes. After that, I will simply create a variable called as mimi types. So constant mimi types. You can find it on the internet what mimi stands for. It's going to be an object in which I will simply tell it, please hold some key value pairs. If the extension is .html, in that particular case, I would want you to create a header that will have text/html, comma. If the another extension is maybe .css, so .css, in that particular case, you don't have to do it. You can forget it. Later on, we use Express. But just to give you like, when we have our servers, what things we need to keep in our mind. For that reason only, you can ignore this particular part if you want. So text/css. Similarly, over there, let's suppose our extension is .js. In that particular case, I would simply want it the text/type is header type is JavaScript. If it is an image with the extension .png, in that particular case, I would want it to treat it as image with the extension image/png. And then over here, I will simply go add one another type which is .jpg. In that particular case, I would simply want it image/jpg. Let's add one last over there, which is .jpeg. In this particular case, I would simply want it image/jpeg. Our solution is working, properly working. We don't have any issues with them. Okay, please remember that. Then I will simply tell it, do one thing. So this is only like how many extensions this server can expect. In this web page that is going to display as the response, I am sure that these are the extensions to which it has to make requests. So these are the extensions to which it has to display on the website with the extension .html, CSS, JavaScript, images, PNG, JPG, and so on and so forth. Similarly, you can put other extensions. Now, the same content type, which was by default text/HTML, I will simply update it. I will simply tell it, the content type that you have, please update it with what mimi types, whatever the extension name is. Okay, so we can clearly see over there. I will tell you. That's why what we are going to do. Mistake. Okay, sorry. Thank you so much, everyone. So see, I am simply telling it content type is equals to mimi types, which is at this particular key. Now, don't you think extension name, it is also dynamic in nature? It is bound to change depending on what my request.url is. Let's suppose request.url is HTML. So if request.url is HTML, the extension that it will extract from that path is .html. So it is going to simply put .html over here. Simply update my content type with this particular value, which is text/html. Let's suppose if my request.url style is .css. So extension that it will extract over here is .css. Then mimi type is at .css. What is that? Text/css. So content type is updated with that. Perfectly fine. Now over here, I am simply telling it, do one small thing, which is that I know one thing for sure over here in this particular case when there is error. What is the type of content it's displaying? HTML. which is text/HTML content. So I will simply tell the response to write a head over there. Okay. In this write head, I would simply want you to pass status code. What should be the status code that it will give me, which is 404? Because if the error page I am displaying, what's my intention? The pages are not found. So I would want you to give me the header 404. So this is an instruction that I'm trying to tell it. Then over here in this particular case, I will pass another, which is what is the content type that I'm expecting it to give. So content type, simply I would want it that content type over here. So content type T has a capital over there. So content type is equals to, and in this particular case, I will simply go and tell please make content type as text/HTML. Why? Because I know it is going to return me this. So I know this is for sure. But in this particular case, are we sure what the extension will be, what the content type will be? Tell me yes or no. In this case, when I am receiving the content from this particular path, are we sure it will be always HTML? We are not. So it depends on the, it can be image as well. It can be anything as well. It depends on requested.url. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So over here, what I will do is I will simply tell it, do one thing. Let me copy the same thing and let me paste it here. Now, instead of making content type as text/HTML, I will simply tell it, make it the variable. So please go here and make it the variable that we have. Now, don't you think, depending on what my request.url is, the file path will be updated, extension name will be updated, content type will also be updated. Automatically, I am giving it information. Now, whatever that is, please make sure not 404. What is the status code that we want? Okay. Okay means 200. So we don't want 404. We want okay, but content type should be based on whatever the Mimi type says, in which I have simply content type. Now this makes, like, this is the extra surety that I am placing over there. Whatever request.url becomes, whatever extension we have, I am simply placing it over here inside this and making it content type becomes that, so that it can give me it. So I am simply passing extra information inside my header. I hope this makes sense. Although it should work, hopefully. It should not be like now it does not work once I implement content type, because sometimes that might happen as well. Not might happen, sometimes it happens because we might be missing something. So if I refresh page, it works. You can see it works properly. We don't have any issues in it. Everything is properly working in a similar way as well. But what we did is we implemented one extra thing over here. I hope this makes sense. Give me a quick confirmation in the chat whether we understood how to create servers. Govind is saying, sir, I don't know how do you give this type of content free, because I have a training offer with paid and this content is more than valuable. Then that's what the agenda is actually, Govind, to give the premium content without you paying anything. That's what we need to do. And that's the plan, right? I hope this makes sense. Should we discuss another module quickly, operating system module? Let me close that, because tomorrow I want to start Express. I don't want to do anything else. So let me go here. Let me create a folder quickly. Only 10 minutes. It should not take more than that. And let me simply go create a file within it and call it index.html. First of all, whatever code I will write inside this, it is never ever going to be executed inside this terminal. So we have to make sure we will change the terminal location. So cd dot dot and then cd open OS and click enter. And now if I try to execute this file, it will work. Now, although the path name should be JS, file name should be JS. So JS. Done. It takes the, by default, there are a lot of headers that are passed. I showed you that as well, Harish. If you go on there, by default, it shows, it passes all those. You can see, like, did I pass all these? Text/HTML and so on and so forth. No, I did not. So it defaults are passed. And browsers are right now very much intelligent. We have made sure that over there inside the servers, Node.js servers, they have all the necessary things within them. But since sometimes Mimi types might be asking, what are Mimi types? I hope you understand this. Okay, right? Okay, let's go here to our code that we have, and let's understand quickly our operating system model. Quickly, I will not waste any time. So I will simply try to make you understand what operating system module is. So for that, I will simply have to use constant OS is equals to, I will simply require what? Require my operating system module. Simple. Then after that, I will simply say over here console.log my OS module. And if I try to go here and now simply say node index.js, click enter, we can clearly see it gives me lot of methods. So there's a lot of things over there. All the information related to the operating system where I am running this server. Right? So all the details related to the operating system that I have. For example, let me do one thing. Let me simply go and paste this code. See all of the code here. If you look at this code, what I have done, I have simply done one small thing. I want to see what is the architecture of the operating system in which I am working right now, in which the server is. What is similarly the free memory, free RAM memory right now? Like in your operating system, you have RAM, right? It's 8 GB, 16 GB, so on and so forth. In that, what is the free memory that I have right now? So let's go over here. Let me try to comment this much of code until now. And now what I will do is I will try to execute this code. So let me go. Come on, work this. It's not commenting the code. Okay. Now if I go here in the terminal and let's pay close attention what architecture actually means. So now if I try to say node index.js, click enter, we can clearly see it says the CPU architecture that we have, it's x64. So in which this server is created, if you want its operating system information, we use operating system middleware. Let me try to console this. Uncomment this. Now if I try to execute this over here, we can clearly see these many number of bytes I have right now free inside my system from the RAM. This is the free memory inside my operating system. We can do that as well. What if I want it inside in terms of GB? Now bytes, how many bytes are there inside 1 kilobyte? And similarly, how many kilobytes are there in 1 MB? How many MBs are there in 1 GB? 1024, right? So we simply am dividing these bytes with the KBs, with the MBs, and then in the GB. So now if I try to execute this, it gives me simply that right now, although have I consoled it? No, I have not. So let me try to console the memory. So now if I try to execute this right now, according to the system, 1.39 GB of free RAM right now I have available. I have a 8 GB RAM over here. I have a lot of things that are running. So unfortunately, I have only 1.3 memory available. Similarly, over here, what if I want to see the total memory, total RAM of my system? As I said, it's 8 GB, something like that. So if I try to execute this, you can clearly see the total memory that I have is 7.37. So it's not 8 GB RAM, it's 7.37. That's what the RAM is. Similarly, what is the host name? What is the operating system type? So if I try to uncomment this as well and now try to execute this, we can clearly see host name is laptop FT, something like this. Operating name is Windows NT. Is there anything else? What is the release and what is the platform for my operating system? So now if I try to execute this, we can clearly see the platform is Win32, release is 10.0.26100. So the point is not to actually understand all these methods. Ignore them, forget them. We don't need them. Okay. But the point is that maybe in future, if we have ever need anything related to operating system, it should kick in your mind that, okay, I know already there's a module with the help of operating system, which we operating system model with the help of which we can simply get details of operating system. That's what the agenda is. It's not agenda that you have to learn and note all of these modules one by one. No. Whatever is important, whatever you need to note, I will tell you that. Don't note this much. Okay. I hope this makes complete sense. So with this, we are going to conclude our today's class. I hope you have enjoyed this session. I have a small request. Trust me when I say this. I am too busy right now. Too busy because I am currently in a university where I am delivering every day 4 hours of content. Then in the evening, I am taking 2 hours of class for the company where I work. Okay. So it's 6 hours of class every day. And yet I am here for all of you guys. So I request you to please, all these 40 students who have watched this class, once this class is done, put a valuable comment there, put a feedback there, whatever your honest feedback is. Please do that. That's the only requirement. Share this YouTube channel within your network, within your friends, and tell them, let them know, like, this is what we are doing. I don't think I'm making it any difficult, right? So I hope you have enjoyed all of this session. Where are you living? I'm currently in LPU, Lovely Professional University. Over here, I'm taking a placement batch, right? Perfect. So that's what I need. I simply need your support. Please do that. Make sure you share this within your network and then put a comment at the end. That's the only thing that I need. Also, once the class is done, In next 1 hour, I will do the dinner now. And once after that, I have a small class which I have to take again. And then I will properly launch a assignment in our Google Meet, the same assignment which was in the servers, the server that you need to create, which will make sure all the files are properly displayed. That is the assignment. I'm telling you it right now. This is the assignment that you have to upload. Okay, so please, please, please make sure you work on it. So I hope you have enjoyed the session. Yes, attendance. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much for reminding me that. I almost forgot. Not this one. Allow me a second. I have some. Okay, this one. Perfect. So let me share the attendance link in the chat. So guys, please mark your attendance. Perfect. Thank you so much, Sadi. That's what life is, right? Thank you so much, guys. Bye, everyone. Please mark your attendance. I will wait 1 or 2 minutes, and then we will close our session. I hope you have enjoyed the session. Please put a valuable comment later on, and see you in the next class, which will be tomorrow at the same time, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And tomorrow, we are going to start our Express. So make sure you do not miss that class. Stay here. Make sure you watch the Express, because ultimately Express is what you are going to use in order to create servers. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Bye, everyone. Good night, and see you tomorrow. Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bye.